The discovery of Earth's relics. The cold winds of a barren Earth swept across the desolate landscape. Centuries after the planet's fall, it was nothing more than a lifeless rock. Alien scholars from the Galactic Alliance had come to study what was left of humanity, a species long thought to be extinct. Their ships hovered above the crumbling ruins, scanning for artifacts worth cataloging. Among the team was Garland, an ambitious scientist from the Varnic species. He was tall, with pale green skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Garland was bored. All they ever found on these expeditions were fragments of old books, melted metals, and shattered structures. Humanity, once a minor annoyance to the Galactic Alliance, had clearly been incapable of true progress. "What a waste of time," Garland muttered, kicking a piece of debris aside. "Be patient," said Lyra, his more cautious colleague. She was a historian who took her work seriously. Humans were a peculiar species. They didn't conquer the stars with advanced technology. They thrived through creativity and adaptability. "We might find something important here." Garland scoffed. Creativity. What good is creativity against plasma cannons and star cruisers? As they walked deeper into the ruins, their scanners beeped. Buried beneath layers of dirt and ash, something large and metallic lay waiting. A group of workers rushed over, using anti-gravity tools to lift the debris. Slowly, an enormous shape began to emerge. A tank, covered in rust, but remarkably intact. "What is this?" Garland asked, stepping closer. The tank's design was primitive by their standards. Thick armor, rotating turrets, and treads designed for ground movement. It lacked energy shields or the sleek efficiency of modern vehicles. "It's a human war machine," Lyra said, her voice tinged with fascination. "They called them tanks. They were used for ground battles centuries ago." Garland burst out laughing. This is what humans relied on. No wonder they were wiped out. This relic couldn't even scratch the paint of an Alliance scout drone. The other scholars joined in the laughter, their voices echoing across the ruins. They mocked the humans' reliance on such primitive tools, taking pictures and recording videos to share with their colleagues. But Lyra wasn't laughing. She walked around the tank, her fingers tracing the faded insignias painted on its side. Despite its age, the machine radiated a strange energy, a sense of purpose that seemed to defy its worn-down appearance. "Don't underestimate them," Lyra said quietly. "Humans weren't just about machines. They were about how they used them. There's a reason their enemies feared them." Garland rolled his eyes. "Feared? Please, they were wiped out in weeks when the Alliance attacked. If they were so clever, where are they now?" Before Lyra could respond, another worker shouted, "There's more here." Excavations continued late into the night. The team uncovered an entire underground hangar, filled with dozens of tanks. Some were slightly different in design, with reinforced plating or larger cannons. Tools, manuals, and spare parts were scattered around, preserved by the sealed environment. Lyra studied a dusty old book she found on a workbench. It was filled with diagrams and notes, all in Earth's forgotten language. Though she couldn't understand the words, the precision of the drawings and the complexity of the strategies outlined within fascinated her. "These aren't just machines," she murmured. "They're extensions of human ingenuity. They were designed for adaptability, to operate in any environment. Look at this. It explains how to repair them with minimal resources." Garland ignored her, more interested in scanning the tanks for scrap value. He was confident the Galactic Alliance would laugh at the notion of these relics being useful in any capacity. As they prepared to leave, the workers accidentally activated a hidden panel in the hangar. A series of lights flickered to life, and an ancient hologram projector whirred into action. The image of a human soldier appeared, dressed in military fatigues. His face was stern, his voice steady. "To whoever finds this," the hologram said, "know that humanity was not defeated. These tanks were our tools, but they were nothing without the spirit of the people who fought in them. If you think this is the end, you're mistaken." We are survivors, and one day we will return." The message ended, leaving the aliens in stunned silence. For the first time, Garland felt uneasy. The hologram's words carried a weight that he couldn't shake off. "Just propaganda," he said dismissively, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Lura's expression was unreadable as she stared at the tanks. Something about the message stirred a deep sense of unease and curiosity. What if humanity wasn't truly gone? What if the tanks weren't just relics of the past, but a warning for the future? As the team left the ruins, Garland laughed again, though it sounded forced. Humans, always so dramatic. Let's see how far their spirit gets them against modern plasma weaponry. Lura didn't respond. She couldn't shake the feeling that the humans, even in their absence, had just begun to play their hand. Humanity's secret survival. Far from the ruins of Earth, hidden deep within the asteroid belt, humanity thrived in the shadows. Generations of survivors had adapted to a harsh existence, carving out life in hollowed-out asteroids and forgotten space stations. They had become ghosts, unseen and unheard by the Galactic Alliance. Commander Elias Draven stood on a makeshift balcony overlooking the central hub of the human colony, a sprawling network of interconnected habitats. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the chatter of engineers fine-tuning ancient technology. Elias was a man forged by hardship, his face lined with the weight of responsibility. His sharp blue eyes scanned the bustling activity below as a group of young cadets practiced maneuvers in a simulation dome. "Commander," a voice called from behind him. It was Lieutenant Kara Mills, his trusted second-in-command. She carried a datapad loaded with the day's reports. "The scouts have returned. The aliens found the old tank hangar on Earth." Elias's jaw tightened. He had expected this day would come, but it didn't make the news any easier to hear. How much did they uncover? "Enough to mock us," Kara replied, a hint of anger in her voice. "They're broadcasting footage of our tanks across the galaxy, calling them relics of a backward species." Elias turned to face her, his expression calm but resolute. "Let them laugh. It's better they think we're irrelevant." Kara hesitated. "Commander, are we really ready? These tanks, these machines, they're centuries old. Even with the upgrades, can they stand against the Alliance's advanced weaponry?" Elias's lips curled into a faint smile. "The tanks are tools, Lieutenant. What wins wars isn't just the tools, it's the minds that wield them. And humans have always been the masters of improvisation." Deep within the colony's underground chambers, engineers worked tirelessly on the ancient tanks salvaged from Earth. What the aliens didn't know was that these machines had been far from ordinary even in their time. Humanity's desperation had driven them to innovate, creating tanks capable of adapting to any battlefield. One such tank, nicknamed Titan, stood at the center of the engineering bay. It was a monstrous machine, its thick armor gleaming under the harsh lights. The tank had been retrofitted with advanced AI, energy-based weaponry, and modular systems that allowed it to transform for different combat scenarios. "You think this'll scare the aliens?" a young engineer named Lucas joked, wiping oil from his hands as he stepped back from Titan. "They won't know what hit them," grunted Chief Engineer Marcus Vance, a grizzled veteran with a mechanical arm. "These tanks might look old, but they'll eat those shiny Alliance walkers for breakfast." At a nearby workstation, another engineer, Sarah Lynn, was debugging the AI systems. "It's not just about the tech," she said, her voice steady. "It's about the tactics. The Alliance fights by the book, relying on overwhelming firepower. They've forgotten how to adapt. That's where we have the advantage." Meanwhile, in the colony's command center, Elias and Kara studied a holographic map of the asteroid belt. Their scouts had detected a small Alliance reconnaissance ship nearing the sector. It was likely searching for signs of human activity, emboldened by their recent discovery of the Earth hangar. "They're getting too close," Kara said, her tone sharp. "We can't afford to be discovered." Elias nodded. "Agreed. But we also can't let this opportunity slip away." If we take that ship, we'll gain valuable intel and send a message that humanity isn't as extinct as they think. Kara frowned. That's a big risk. If they call for reinforcements, they won't get the chance, Elias interrupted. We'll use the Titan. Her eyes widened slightly. The Titan. It hasn't seen real combat in decades. It's time it does, Elias replied, his voice firm. The aliens need to be reminded that humans are more than relics. The Titan was prepared for its first mission in generations. A select team of seasoned tank operators and engineers climbed aboard, their faces a mix of determination and nerves. Elias watched them from the hangar's edge, his mind racing with memories of Earth's final days. He remembered his father's stories of the tanks that once roared across battlefields, defying impossible odds. The Titan rolled out of the hangar with a low mechanical growl. Its AI core came online, its voice calm and precise. Mission parameters uploaded. Target: alien reconnaissance vessel. Objective: intercept and disable. The tank moved through the asteroid's narrow tunnels, its treads crushing rock and debris. The humans had mapped out a stealthy approach, using the asteroid's dense fields to mask their movements. As they neared the alien ship, the crew prepared for combat. Sarah monitored the AI systems while Lucas calibrated the energy cannon. Marcus, ever the pragmatist, double-checked the tank's shield generators. Remember, Elias's voice crackled over the comms. We don't just fight for survival. We fight to remind them who we are. The alien ship hovered near an asteroid, its sleek design a stark contrast to the Titan's rugged frame. Inside, the alien crew monitored their scanners, blissfully unaware of the danger closing in. The first shot came without warning. A blast from the Titan's cannon disabled the ship's engines, sending it spinning. Alarms blared as the alien crew scrambled to respond. But it was too late. The Titan charged forward, its shields deflecting incoming fire. It maneuvered with surprising agility, exploiting the ship's blind spots to land devastating hits. Within minutes, the battle was over. The alien ship lay crippled, its crew captured. For the first time in centuries, humanity had struck back. As the Titan returned to the colony, its crew cheered. The mission was a success, but Elias knew this was only the beginning. The Alliance would come looking for their lost ship, and humanity would be ready. In the dimly lit command center, Elias stared at the holographic map, his mind already planning their next move. The galaxy believed humanity was gone, their machines relics of a bygone era. They were wrong. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were preparing for war. The first skirmish. The Galactic Alliance's lost reconnaissance ship was a glaring anomaly in their otherwise tightly monitored network. The vessel's disappearance, combined with scattered reports of human activity, was enough to raise alarms. A detachment of Alliance forces, led by Captain Thriss, a veteran commander of the elite Sivorian Guard, was dispatched to investigate. Captain Thriss stood on the bridge of her cruiser, gazing at the holographic display of the asteroid belt. She was a towering figure, her silvery scales reflecting the ambient light. Her crimson eyes narrowed as she examined the map. A primitive species, she muttered. Yet they've managed to disrupt our operations. Let's see how long their defiance lasts. On the edge of the asteroid belt, humanity's scouts detected the incoming fleet. In the command center, Elias Draven and his officers studied the data with grim determination. They've sent a full detachment, Kara Mills reported, her voice calm but tense. 2 cruisers, a dozen strike ships, and ground troops equipped with their latest walkers. Elias leaned over the map, his finger tracing the asteroid fields. They'll expect us to fight like them. Straightforward engagements, overwhelming firepower. That's their first mistake. They're not going to underestimate us forever, Kara warned. We have to hit them hard enough to make them hesitate. Elias nodded. Then we make this a lesson they won't forget. Deploy the Titan and the Vanguard tanks. It's time for the Alliance to learn why humans should never be cornered. As the alien fleet entered the asteroid belt, they encountered an eerie silence. No signals, no resistance, just the vast emptiness of rock and shadows. Captain Thriss paced the bridge impatiently, her clawed hand tapping against the console. "Deploy the ground forces," she ordered. "Sweep the area. If there are humans here, we'll flush them out." On the surface of a jagged asteroid, the Alliance's ground troops landed, their sleek walkers striding confidently over the rocky terrain. The soldiers moved in precise formations, scanning for any signs of movement. Suddenly, a rumble echoed through the air. It was faint at first, but it grew louder, deeper, until the ground itself seemed to tremble. The alien soldiers paused, their scanners unable to identify the source. Then, from the shadows of a narrow canyon, the first human tank emerged. It was the Titan. The alien commander on the ground barked orders, directing his walkers to intercept. They opened fire, plasma bolts scorching the canyon walls. But the Titan moved with calculated precision, its upgraded shields absorbing the initial barrage. Its AI system identified weak points in the walker's armor, and with a single thunderous blast, it obliterated the lead machine. More tanks emerged behind the Titan, each retrofitted with advanced weaponry. The humans had been waiting, using the asteroid's terrain to funnel the enemy into a trap. The battle erupted into chaos as the tanks maneuvered through the rugged terrain, outflanking and outgunning the alien walkers. From a ridge overlooking the battlefield, Marcus Vance watched the carnage unfold. "These aliens rely too much on their tech," he muttered. "They don't know how to fight without it." Sarah Lynn, stationed nearby, monitored the tank's AI systems. "The Titan's holding up, but we need to finish this quickly. If those cruisers get involved, we're done for." In orbit, Captain Thriss received the distress calls from her ground forces. The reports were chaotic. Descriptions of human tanks moving with unprecedented speed and power, obliterating their walkers with precision strikes. Thriss clenched her fists. "Deploy the strike ships. Wipe them out." The sleek, angular strike ships descended into the asteroid belt, their engines roaring as they locked onto the tanks below. They unleashed a storm of plasma fire, scorching the surface and forcing the tanks to scatter. Elias, watching from the command center, gave the order: "Activate the flare cannons." Hidden within the asteroid's crevices, human engineers activated makeshift energy weapons. The flare cannons fired concentrated bursts of plasma, not to destroy the strike ships, but to blind their targeting systems. The alien pilots, disoriented and unable to lock onto their targets, flew into the narrow canyons where the tanks awaited. The Titan took point, its AI predicting the strike ship's erratic movements. With a deafening roar, it fired its main cannon, striking the ship directly in its core. The explosion lit up the canyon, and the other tanks followed suit, systematically picking off the alien fleet. As the dust settled, the battlefield grew silent once more. The humans had won the skirmish, their tanks standing triumphant amidst the wreckage of alien walkers and strike ships. In the command center, Elias and Kara reviewed the aftermath. "We've sent a message," Kara said, "but they'll come back with more." "They will," Elias agreed, "but now they know we're not relics. We're survivors." Aboard her damaged cruiser, Captain Thriss seethed with frustration. She stared at the reports of her losses, unable to reconcile how a species she had deemed primitive could inflict such damage. "This isn't over," she hissed, her claws digging into the console. "If the humans want to fight, we'll give them a war." Back in the human colony, the engineers worked tirelessly to repair the tanks and prepare for the inevitable retaliation. Among them, Lucas and Sarah exchanged a glance, their faces marked by exhaustion, but also a growing sense of hope. For the first time in centuries, humanity had struck fear into the Galactic Alliance, and they weren't done yet. The Alliance strikes back. The Galactic Alliance was shaken. Reports of their defeat in the asteroid belt spread across their vast territory like wildfire. It wasn't just the loss of a reconnaissance ship or ground forces. It was the symbolic blow dealt by a species they believed extinct. To recover their pride and eliminate the human threat, the Alliance gathered a larger fleet. At the heart of this fleet was the Eclipse, a colossal dreadnought armed with experimental plasma lances capable of annihilating anything in its path. Command of the mission was handed to Admiral Zelvin, a shrewd tactician known for his relentless pursuit of victory. "They embarrassed us once," Zelvin growled during a briefing with his officers. His deep voice reverberated through the ship's halls. "But now we know their tricks. They're scavengers, using outdated machines to play soldier. This time, we'll wipe them out completely." On the edge of the asteroid belt, humanity's scouts detected the incoming fleet, a massive armada of cruisers, destroyers, and landing craft escorted by swarms of fighters. The command center buzzed with tension as the reports came in. Lieutenant Kara Mills studied the data, her jaw tightening. "They're bringing everything this time, Elias. The Eclipse alone could vaporize us." Elias Draven didn't flinch. "Good. Let them think they can crush us. Their arrogance will be their undoing." The colony's council gathered for an emergency meeting. While some leaders argued for retreat, Elias stood firm. "We've spent generations preparing for this moment," he said, his voice steady but commanding. "If we run now, they'll hunt us to the edges of the galaxy. But here, in this belt, we have the advantage. The asteroids are our fortress. Let's show them what humans can do." The battle began with a thunderous roar. The Eclipse led the charge, its plasma lances cutting through the asteroid field, turning massive rocks into molten debris. Fighters swarmed ahead, scouting for signs of human resistance. But the humans were ready. In the shadowed depths of the asteroid field, the Titan and its sister tanks lay in wait, their systems running cold to avoid detection. Engineers had outfitted them with stealth plating and modified their weapons for maximum impact. As the alien fleet moved deeper into the belt, the humans launched their first countermeasure. Hidden on the largest asteroids were flare mines, designed to emit intense bursts of light and electromagnetic waves. When detonated, the mines blinded the Alliance ship's sensors, throwing their formations into chaos. "What's happening?" Admiral Zelvin barked as his bridge lights flickered. "Find them." Amid the confusion, the Titan and its squadron struck. They emerged from the asteroid shadows, their weapons aimed at the vulnerable underbellies of the alien ships. The first volley destroyed 2 cruisers, the explosions lighting up the darkness. The tanks moved with uncanny precision, their AI systems predicting the movements of the disoriented fleet. One tank, piloted by Sarah Lynn and Lucas, targeted a destroyer's engine core, crippling it with a single, well-placed shot. On the ground, the Alliance deployed its walkers and troops, determined to flush out the humans. But the terrain was treacherous, riddled with tunnels and traps. The humans had rigged narrow passageways with explosives, collapsing them to isolate enemy forces. Kara Mills led a group of resistance fighters in a daring operation to sabotage an alien landing craft. Using improvised jetpacks and explosives, her team boarded the ship midair, disabling its engines and forcing it to crash into a nearby asteroid. "The Alliance fights with brute force," Kara said over the comms, her voice crackling with static. "We fight with our wits. Let's keep it that way." Back in space, Admiral Zelvin grew increasingly furious. He ordered the Eclipse to fire indiscriminately, hoping to flush the humans out. The massive plasma lances carved through the asteroid field, but they also created new debris that the humans used to their advantage. Elias Draven coordinated the defense from the command center, his mind racing as he issued orders. "Focus on their supply ships," he instructed. "Cut off their reinforcements. Make every shot count." The humans launched a daring assault on the Eclipse itself. Using modified cargo ships outfitted with decoy emitters, they tricked the dreadnought into targeting false signals. While the Eclipse wasted its firepower, a small squad of human tanks approached undetected. The Titan led the charge, its upgraded cannon firing a high-yield plasma shell that struck one of the dreadnought's weapon arrays. The explosion rippled across the ship, disabling one of its lances. Inside the command center of the Eclipse, Zelvin slammed his fist against the console. How are they doing this? These are relics, for Star's sake. Despite their ingenuity, the humans began to feel the strain of the battle. The Alliance's overwhelming numbers pushed them to their limits. Elias knew they couldn't hold out much longer without a bold move. "We need to force a retreat," he said to Kara, who had just returned from the ground skirmish. "If we destroy the Eclipse, the rest of their fleet will scatter." Kara hesitated. "That ship is a fortress, Elias. Even with the Titan, it's a suicide mission." "It's a risk we have to take," Elias replied. "If we don't stand now, we'll never get another chance." As the humans prepared for their final strike, the Titan's crew made their peace with the odds. Lucas joked nervously as he calibrated the cannon, while Sarah silently focused on the AI interface. Marcus, the grizzled engineer, muttered, "If we're going out, let's make it a show they'll never forget." The Titan charged through the chaos, its shields absorbing hit after hit as it made a beeline for the Eclipse. With the last of their power reserves, they fired a concentrated plasma burst at the Dreadnought's core reactor. The shot landed with devastating accuracy, triggering a chain reaction. The Eclipse erupted in a blinding explosion, its debris scattering into the void. The surviving alien ships, disoriented and leaderless, retreated. The humans had won the day, but the cost was high. The Titan, battered and barely operational, limped back to the colony. In the command center, Elias watched the retreating fleet with a mix of relief and determination. "They'll be back," Kara said quietly. Elias nodded. "And so will we. They think we're fighting for survival. They're wrong. We're fighting for humanity's future." The battle wasn't over, but humanity had proven one thing. The Galactic Alliance was no longer invincible. Humanity's counterattack. The destruction of the Eclipse sent shockwaves across the Galactic Alliance. What should have been a routine mission to eradicate a primitive remnant had turned into a catastrophe. The humans' ability to outmaneuver, outthink, and outright destroy an elite fleet left the Alliance reeling. Back in the hidden colony, the mood was far from celebratory. Though they had won a hard-fought victory, the cost was heavy. The Titan was barely functional, its armor scorched and systems damaged. Many of the tanks and fighters were similarly worn, and the survivors were acutely aware that the Alliance would return with even greater force. Commander Elias Draven stood before the Council of Elders, a grim expression on his face. "We've bought ourselves time, but not much. The Alliance won't make the same mistakes twice." One of the elders, a woman with piercing gray eyes, leaned forward. "What do you propose, Commander?" Another desperate stand. Elias shook his head. "No, this time, we take the fight to them." Gasps filled the chamber. For centuries, humanity had lived in the shadows, surviving by avoiding detection. Now, Elias was proposing the unthinkable, an offensive against the Galactic Alliance. The plan. Elias and his team worked tirelessly to devise a strategy. They identified a critical supply route used by the Alliance to transport resources and troops. At its heart was Chiron Station, a heavily fortified depot that served as a hub for multiple sectors. "Chiron Station is their lifeline," Elias explained during a briefing. "If we can disrupt it, we'll cripple their ability to launch another large-scale offensive. It won't win the war, but it will give us breathing room." Kara Mills, his second-in-command, raised an eyebrow. "And how exactly are we supposed to take down a station guarded by an entire fleet?" "With precision and deception," Elias replied, a faint smirk on his face. "We'll use their arrogance against them." The counterattack begins. The human fleet, patched together with salvaged parts and ingenuity, set out under the cover of the asteroid field. The Titan, still operational thanks to the tireless efforts of Chief Engineer Marcus Vance and his team, led the charge. It wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance. Using decoy drones and electromagnetic pulses, the humans masked their approach, slipping past the outer patrols undetected. As they neared Chiron Station, They launched the first phase of their attack, a coordinated strike on the station's communication arrays. Lucas, piloting a nimble recon tank outfitted with stealth tech, infiltrated the station's perimeter. "Comm arrays in sight," he reported over the comms. "Firing now." The recon tank's energy cannon let loose a precise shot, taking out the primary relay. Within moments, the station was plunged into chaos. The Alliance forces scrambled to reestablish control, their ships circling defensively. The decoy. While the Alliance focused on repairing their communications, the humans deployed their decoy strategy. A fleet of modified cargo ships, rigged to emit false energy signatures, appeared on the station's sensors. The Alliance commanders, believing it to be the main human fleet, diverted their forces to intercept. "It's working," Kara said, watching the chaos unfold on the tactical display. "They've taken the bait." Elias nodded. "Good. Now we hit them where it hurts." The infiltration. With the bulk of the Alliance fleet distracted, a small team of human operatives, led by Kara, infiltrated Chiron Station itself. Disguised in captured Alliance uniforms, they moved through the labyrinthine corridors, planting explosive charges at key structural points. Kara's heart pounded as she and her team reached the station's main reactor. The sound of boots echoed in the distance. Alliance soldiers were closing in. "Set the charges," Kara ordered, her voice calm despite the tension. "We're running out of time." As the last charge was armed, an alarm blared. The team had been discovered. A firefight erupted, the humans using their superior training and knowledge of the station's layout to hold off the attackers. The Titan's last stand. Outside, the Titan led the remaining human tanks in a daring assault on the station's docking base. The goal was to prevent reinforcements from landing while the infiltration team completed their mission. The Titan's AI, affectionately nicknamed Old Iron, analyzed the battlefield with cold precision. Incoming reinforcements detected. Recommend prioritizing heavy artillery units. Marcus grinned, gripping the tank's controls. "You got it, Iron. Let's show these aliens what ancient tech can do." The Titan tore through the enemy ranks, its cannon roaring as it disabled walkers and blasted through defensive lines. Despite its damaged state, the tank fought with relentless ferocity, its crew determined to buy as much time as possible. The detonation. Inside Chiron Station, Kara and her team fought their way to an escape route. The charges were set to detonate in minutes, and they had no intention of being caught in the blast. As they reached their extraction point, Kara glanced back at the reactor core, its hum growing louder. "This is for Earth," she whispered before boarding the waiting shuttle. The charges detonated in a blinding explosion, ripping through the station. Chiron Station, the lifeline of the Galactic Alliance's fleet, was reduced to a burning wreck. The aftermath. The human fleet regrouped in the asteroid belt, battered but victorious. The destruction of Chiron Station dealt a critical blow to the Alliance, forcing them to halt their advance and rethink their strategy. In the command center, Elias addressed the colony. "Today, we proved that humanity is more than a memory. We are fighters, survivors, and innovators. The galaxy thought they had seen the last of us. They were wrong." Cheers erupted across the colony, but Elias's mind was already on the battles to come. The Alliance would return, angrier and more determined than ever. But for now, humanity had gained something invaluable: hope. The war wasn't over, but humanity was no longer merely defending. They were fighting back, and for the first time in centuries, they were winning. The Galactic Alliance in chaos. The destruction of Chiron Station sent ripples of chaos through the Galactic Alliance. Supply chains collapsed, fleets stranded without resources, and political infighting erupted as accusations of incompetence spread among Alliance leaders. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful force was vulnerable, and humanity wasn't done. In the heart of the colony, back in the asteroid belt, Elias Draven stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. The once faded blue lines of the Alliance's trade routes now glowed red, marking the fractures caused by Chiron Station's fall. Beside him, Kara Mills reviewed the latest intelligence from their infiltrators within the Alliance. "They're scrambling," Kara said, her tone filled with a mix of satisfaction and urgency. "Fleets are being recalled to their core worlds. Some sectors are even talking about breaking away." Elias nodded. "Good. Their unity is their strength. If it shatters, we'll have a chance. But they won't stay disorganized for long," Kara warned. "The Alliance will consolidate and come for us with everything they have." Elias's gaze hardened. "Then we strike again before they can." A desperate alliance. On the Alliance's capital world, the Council of High Command convened in a tense emergency session. The Grand Chamber, once a symbol of galactic order, was now filled with shouting and accusations. Admiral Zelvin, bruised by his defeat at the asteroid belt, stood at the center. "We underestimated them," he growled. "These humans aren't scavengers, they're tacticians. They've exploited our weaknesses and made us look like fools." A Caxivorian delegate slammed her claws against the table. "And whose fault is that, Admiral? You assured us this would be a swift operation." Zelvin bristled but said nothing. Across the table, an elder from the peaceful Varanian species spoke up. "Perhaps we should attempt diplomacy. Humanity's grievances. Enough." Council leader Threx cut him off. His serpentine form coiled in frustration as he glared at the others. "This is not a time for weakness. Humanity is an infection, and we will root it out." But even as the Council argued, fractures within their ranks deepened. Some species, seeing humanity's resilience, questioned the Alliance's ability to protect them. Whispers of rebellion began to spread. Humanity's next move. In the human colony, plans for a second offensive were underway. Intelligence reports suggested that the Alliance had established a temporary command center on Kelnar, a planet rich in resources, but likely defended due to the recent chaos. Elias and his team debated the risks. "If we strike Kelnar, we'll disrupt their fallback operations," Kara said, her voice steady. "But it's deep in Alliance territory. We have to move quickly and hit hard." Marcus Vance, leaning against a battered tank, grunted. "Sounds like my kind of mission. But we'll need something more than brute force." Sarah Lynn, the AI specialist, stepped forward. "We've been working on something," she said, pulling up schematics on the holographic display. It was a modified version of the Titan, outfitted with stealth tech and an EMP device capable of disabling entire fleets. "We call it the Spectre," she said, a note of pride in her voice. "It's not ready for extended combat, but it can get us close enough to deliver a crippling blow." Elias nodded. "Then we use it. If we can disrupt their operations on Kelnar, it'll buy us more time to rally support from other rebel factions." The mission. The Spectre led a small, specialized fleet into Alliance space, using its advanced stealth systems to evade detection. The journey to Kelnar was tense, every sensor ping and fluctuation in the ship's systems raising alarms. When they arrived, they found the planet heavily industrialized, with resource extraction facilities and a sprawling base serving as the command center. Alliance ships patrolled the skies, but their movements were erratic, a sign of their growing disarray. "We'll need a distraction," Elias said, studying the battlefield from the Spectre's command deck. Marcus grinned. "Leave that to us." On the ground, human operatives deployed makeshift explosives and decoys, creating the illusion of a larger attacking force. Alliance troops scrambled to respond, pulling their defenses away from the command center. The Spectre strikes. As the chaos unfolded, the Spectre descended toward the planet's atmosphere. Its EMP device hummed with energy, ready to unleash its devastating payload. Inside the tank, Sarah monitored the systems while Marcus and Lucas prepared for the final strike. "EMP charge at 95%, Sarah reported. "We'll only get one shot at this." "Then let's make it count," Marcus said, gripping the controls. The Spectre reached its target zone, just above the command center's central reactor. With a deafening pulse, the EMP fired, sending a shockwave that cascaded through the base's systems. Lights flickered and died, ships fell from the sky, and the entire command network collapsed. The aftermath. The human team barely escaped the blast zone, the Spectre limping back to the extraction point. As they fled, explosions rocked the command center, igniting fuel depots and resource stockpiles. The sky above Kelnar burned as Alliance ships, disabled by the EMP, crashed into the planet's surface. In the command center of the human colony, cheers erupted as the news of the successful mission arrived. Kara turned to Elias, a rare smile on her face. "We did it." Elias allowed himself a moment of relief. For now. But this isn't just about survival anymore. The Alliance is crumbling, and it's time we build something better. Alliance despair. Back in the capital, Council leader Threx received the news with cold fury. "They've humiliated us again," he hissed. "This is no longer a conflict. This is war." But even as he vowed revenge, factions within the Alliance began breaking away. Inspired by humanity's defiance, other oppressed species saw a chance to rise. The once mighty Galactic Alliance was falling apart, and humanity was leading the charge. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was changing, and it was humanity, not the Alliance, shaping its future. The final rampage. The Galactic Alliance stood on the brink of collapse. Their supply lines were in shambles, key outposts destroyed, and whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire across the galaxy. What had once been an empire of control and domination now teetered under the weight of its arrogance and humanity's unrelenting defiance. For humanity, this was the moment they had been preparing for. Elias Draven gathered his most trusted advisors in the colony's command center, where a holographic map of the galaxy displayed their next and boldest objective, Celestera Prime, the Alliance's capital world. "This is where we end it," Elias declared, his voice steady. "If we take Celestera, we don't just strike a blow to the Alliance, we shatter their control over the galaxy." Kara Mills folded her arms, her expression skeptical but determined. "The Alliance's strongest fleets are still guarding the capital. Even in their weakened state, this is a suicide mission." Elias's lips curled into a faint smile. "That's why we're not going there to destroy. We're going there to expose them." The plan. A war of ideologies. Human intelligence operatives had unearthed damning evidence about the Alliance's dark secrets: genocide of rebellious species, exploitation of weaker worlds, and manipulation of galactic history to maintain their power. Elias's plan was simple: infiltrate Celestera Prime, hijack their planetary broadcast network, and reveal the truth to the galaxy. "It's not enough to win battles," Elias explained. "We have to win hearts. The galaxy doesn't need another warlord. It needs hope." The Titan, now fully repaired and upgraded, was chosen to lead the assault. Alongside it, the Spectre and a fleet of human ships prepared for what would be their most dangerous mission yet: the invasion of Celestera. As the human fleet emerged from hyperspace near Celestera Prime, Alliance forces scrambled to respond. The orbital defenses activated, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. Elias's fleet moved with precision, using guerrilla tactics honed over decades. Stealth ships disabled key defense platforms, while decoy vessels drew fire away from the main assault group. The Titan spearheaded the ground invasion, crashing through enemy lines with an unstoppable fury. Inside the Titan, Marcus Vance barked orders as the crew fought to keep the tank operational. "Don't let up. We didn't come this far to quit now." Sarah Lynn monitored the AI systems, her hands flying across the controls. "We're pushing the reactor to its limits. One more hit and..." "We'll make it," Marcus interrupted. "This old beast hasn't let us down yet." The broadcast. Meanwhile, a team of operatives led by Kara infiltrated the Alliance's central communications hub. Disguised as Alliance officers, they moved quickly through the heavily guarded facility, planting explosives and hacking into the planetary network. As they reached the control room, Alarms blared. The Alliance had discovered their presence. "We've got company," Kara muttered, drawing her weapon. "Lucas, get that signal online." Lucas, hunched over a console, worked furiously to override the system. "Almost there. Just keep them off me." A firefight erupted as Alliance soldiers stormed the room. Kara and her team held their ground, buying Lucas the time he needed. Finally, the screen lit up with the human colony's emblem, a phoenix rising from ashes. "You're live," Lucas said, his voice trembling with relief. The truth revealed. Across the galaxy, billions watched as Elias Draven appeared on their screens. His image was grainy, the background crackling with static, but his voice was clear and resolute. "To all the species of the galaxy," Elias began, "for centuries, the Galactic Alliance has ruled through fear and deceit. They have erased the truth of their actions, of the countless worlds they've destroyed to maintain their power." Images of atrocities filled the screen. Destroyed planets, enslaved species, secret experiments. The final revelation was a classified Alliance document detailing their long-term plan to suppress humanity, fearing what they called the unrelenting potential of the human spirit. "But humanity is still here," Elias continued. "We've survived because we dared to fight back. And we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who's suffered under the Alliance's tyranny." He paused, his gaze piercing. "You have a choice. Stand with us, or stand with those who seek to control you. The time for fear is over. The time for freedom begins now." The galaxy responds. The broadcast ignited a revolution. Across the galaxy, oppressed species rose against the Alliance, inspired by humanity's resilience and courage. Some Alliance fleets mutinied, their captains refusing to fire on civilian uprisings. Others fled, unwilling to face a war they could no longer justify. On Celestera Prime, the Alliance's High Council fell into disarray. Council leader Threx roared in fury as reports of rebellion flooded in. "This cannot be," he snarled. "They're just humans. They're not just humans." Admiral Zelvin interrupted, his voice grim. "They've become the voice of the galaxy." The final push. With the Alliance's forces in chaos, the Titan and its fleet pressed their advantage. The remaining defenders of Celestera Prime fought fiercely, but their lines crumbled under the relentless assault. In the final moments of the battle, the Titan rolled into the heart of the capital, its turret aimed directly at the council chamber. Over the comms, Elias gave the order. "Stand down. Your reign is over." The council surrendered, their pride shattered and their empire in ruins. A new dawn. As the dust settled, Elias stood on the balcony of the former council chamber, overlooking a liberated Celestera Prime. Kara joined him, her face weary but triumphant. "It's done," she said softly. Elias nodded. "The Alliance is gone, but now the real work begins." Under humanity's leadership, a new coalition began to form, one built on cooperation and mutual respect rather than fear. The Titan, battered and scarred, was retired as a symbol of hope, placed at the center of a monument on Celestera Prime. For the first time in centuries, the galaxies stood united, and at its heart was humanity, a species once mocked and forgotten, now a beacon of resilience and strength. The war was over, but the story of humanity had only just begun.